So I want to say this is the first time I've been at this conference. It's very exciting for me. If you were looking at older versions of the program, there might be a mismatch from the name. Paul Wlodarczyk was originally scheduled to give this talk. He was unable to be here, so I'm kind of taking his place. These are his materials, and I'll do my best to translate into my own language. But I'm also speaking again tomorrow. So if you don't like this stuff, try again tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm going to be talking about kind of the communication and the socialization side. But what I want to talk about here very specifically is metrics, and I want to talk about the metrics specifically around content development. So we're going to look at essentially what's a case study, but I actually don't have a whole lot of slides on the case study. I'm going to give you the background of it, and then hopefully it will translate nicely. So this is the idea is that, we all get this, right? Charts like this or something like it, there should be nothing surprising there. The idea is we all know governance matters. We're all self-selected. We all love this stuff. We're all here because we want to be here. And, the question that I'm asking, the question that we did and where this talk comes from is the idea of, where does content benefit business? A lot of times you can see content as an ingredient to something bigger. And here we're saying, no, you need to be governing your content as if the content is what matters, even though, let's be honest, it's not the content that matters, it's what the content drives that matters. So we kind of flip the script a bit around that. So when we think about this, we think about the customer journey. This is a term that you see a lot more in online shopping, e-commerce type of space. But the truth is this is anyone's journey in anyone's space. And you can look at the stages of the digital journey are pretty much the same everywhere, right? It's starting with acquisition and ending with converting. And again, just to be clear, converting is whatever that call to action is that's important to you. So that's what you want your visitors to do, whether they're customers or visitors or users or employees or regulators, whatever it may be. You're trying to get them in terms of acquiring, and you're trying to get them through that journey. And the idea is that throughout this journey, there are a number of things that you can be paying attention to in order to make sure it's being done well. So think of this, I'm going to step back and say, what matters? So at the acquisition stage, right, you're looking to attract visitors to your site. And there's a lot of ways you can come in. You can do paid advertising, you can do SEO, but it's really how many are you grabbing, right? And we could imagine at each step along the way that there are metrics we can use to measure success. So once you've got them, once they've come to your site, your app, your platform, whatever it may be, they're going to land somewhere. And we just think of that as the landing page. And it's usually not the home page. That should come as no surprise, but it often doesn't get said out loud. They're usually coming in somewhere else. Unless they're typing the URL right in the browser address bar, that's not how they're showing up. They're diving in somewhere deep. We call it parachuting in. And we don't know where they're going to end up necessarily. So we kind of need to know. And in fact, knowing where they land tells you what's going on the SEO side. If you know what they typed in the search engine to parachute in and they landed there, that's a connection that can be really informative. And I'll say a little bit more about that in a minute. Once they land, assuming that the land wasn't their goal, they had some goal in mind, this is probably not it, but hopefully it's close. They've got to get from the landing page to the goal page, and they can navigate, so they're clicking through menus and hyperlinks, and you're going to follow them through the app. What pages are they seeing, right? Or they're going to go through search. And there was a lot said about search just in this room before me. There's a lot more that can be said about search and has been said, and I'm happy to have that conversation offline. But site search is one of those things. It's often a black box. It's a bit mysterious and magical and wonderful. And it's one of those things where really understanding how search is working and not working can be a really big challenge and deserves a session of its own. So with the navigation and the search, we're paying attention to see, can people get to their goal? Now, we don't really know what their goal is. So let's assume there's a goal, because there is. And let's assume that they're capable of finding it, because if not, then you just don't have the content and you've got a different kind of problem on your hands. We need to have a hypothesis of what that goal is if we're going to measure this. So are they there to buy a product? Are they there to compare products? Are they there to get a phone number? Are they there to get the menu? Are they there to look up their own information and their own accounts? Whatever that goal page may be, we have to assume we know what it is. And truthfully, that's hard. You've got a lot of users coming in from a lot of different places, and we need to do basically a goal analysis. In that goal analysis, we segment the visitors by goal. It is very important that you don't just lump everybody together and say, well, they're all here to do X, because they're not. Just like you do personas in the front, you need to do goals in the end. And all of the metrics, everything I'm talking about today, is very goal specific. In fact, we also will take it a step further and say, if they use search to get there, we're also going to break that down. So you get this matrix between all the goals and all of the goal pages, right? So what do you think people are after? Where are they all ending up? And then segment it in half. Did they use search to get there, yes or no? It's a very large matrix, and there's a lot of potential for good data in there. And then you get to convert. Now, I don't believe that a conversion has to happen within the site or the app. In an online situation where it's like e-commerce, of course, you want them to buy something or put it in the cart or whatever it is that they're doing. But I have no problem imagining that the goal page gives them a piece of information that they can now go offline with. So I need the phone number so I can pick up the phone. I need the menu so I can go drive to that restaurant, right? There's no reason it has to be totally connected. If anything, you could just, their goal is to be reassured, and then they can go off and do something else. But in other cases, it's, did they actually download it? Did they fill out the form? Did they complete the purchase or the promise to purchase or open an account, whatever it is that you're after? And often when we think about that conversion, whatever that may be, that's often the only metric we're paying attention to when it comes to content. Did they get there? I don't really care who they are. I don't really care how they got there. I'm sort of blanketing that all over with vagaries. But the truth is all of that other stuff along the way matters, because if you don't understand that stuff into the middle, you don't understand why the conversion happens. What ends up happening is if you don't have a sense of this and your numbers suddenly go up, you don't know why. Wouldn't it be nice to know why? If your numbers suddenly go down, don't you want to know why? If they've been slowly going down, don't you want to know why? And it becomes a process that you can't repeat if you don't understand all the steps along the way. So what I want to do is talk about the content development in a way that helps you solve this problem. Because really, this is the interesting problem in the content. It's not about the conversions on the other end. That's what we do. We measure conversions. Oh, we had 1,000 people visit, and only 5 of them signed up for the newsletter. We have a 0.5% conversion rate. And we'd say, let's bring that up. And then the question is, how? Where? Should we fix the newsletter? Do we just need to pour more people into Acquire and solve our SEO problem? Not necessarily. So in bold, you're going to see the kinds of things that we usually use to measure, but I'm trying to say right underneath why it's incomplete. So we're looking for the number of visitors and the number of sessions. We got 1,000 people. We got 100,000 unique visitors a month, right? Great number, fantastic. And if you're comparing it against Convert, you have a decent statistic. But so you have 100,000. Why don't you have 200,000? Where are all the people who didn't show up? Why? Well, SEO is part of that process. But SEO doesn't really look at the failures. It just looks at the potential. It doesn't explain why. So what we do is we look at every single site page and say, where's that show up? Where's that show up? Because remember, it's not about the homepage. It's not even about the site as a whole. It's about every individual place where they could parachute in. Now, there might be pages they parachute into that you wish they didn't. And we're going to get to that when we get to the landing page. But for right now, can we at least scoop them in? Can we capture them with the net? And we don't have a net of one page, one app, one entrance. At least not when we're talking about website content. I get that if it's an app and you're trying to get them to buy the app, you don't have control over the Apple Store. They either download it or they don't. It is a one-page problem, and at least that simplifies things. Here, that's not true. So then we get to the landing page. In other words, they've acquired, they've landed. Now, we don't know why, so we're going to have to go back and look at that. But at least we know they're here, right? Well, they arrived at our page. That's great. This page is a lot of page views, a lot of people coming in from Google.com. We can trace that people are landing here. But a bounce rate is an example of saying, yeah, but do they like it? Is this happy? And keeping in mind that a bounce rate is not always a bad thing. I'm looking for the phone number, done. That was great. And that's what you want, right? You want people calling the phone. Maybe the phone is how you measure the conversion. So you're actually measuring the bounce rate and the conversion to phone off the website, and that becomes the balance that you look at. But generally speaking, if they come to the page and they go, not it, and they leave the site, as opposed to navigating or site searching, they leave it, then there was some kind of disconnect, which goes back to, well, what was their hypothesis? And so what you're going to want to do is you want to go back and say, why did they get here? How did they get here? From where did they come? And say, does it make sense for them to have gotten from point A to point B? You can spam everybody and get lots of landing pages, and the bounce rates will be humongous. So we want to understand, gosh, does spamming work? Some cases it might, in other cases, no. Now they're on the site. So we're looking at, well, how many pages are they clicking on? What are they clicking on next? But we don't necessarily know where they abandoned the process because we're not looking at the whole click path. We're only looking at this one page. Wow, a lot of people left this page. Well, why? Was it their goal and then they left? So we really need to look at the entire click path. And anyone who's done this type of information architecture work knows that. Click path analysis should not come as a surprise to anybody in the content space. What is different about the click path analysis that I want to bring up is that we need to make a distinction between the landing pages and all of the other pages in between and the goal page. Click path analysis only works if you have that hypothesis, if you think you know where they're going. Site search, again, could talk about this forever. Search is its crazy thing. What we want to do when we look at how many people are searching and how many people are bouncing from the search results page, it becomes very interesting to understand the overall search process. Also, you're capturing a very different search language when people are searching on your site than they did to get to your site in the first place. Correlating that, very cool stuff. Because in a way, the word they typed in to find you and the word they typed once they found you together tell a much more interesting story and actually help you get some of the research that you need to do the hypothesis work to make that work in the first place. Goal page. So are they on the page a long time? Might be a great thing that they're on there a long time. They're reading. Might be a terrible thing that they're there because they don't understand what they're looking at. Or you bored them and they went and got a cup of coffee. On the other hand, that's one of these things that people collect. It's very easy to say, how many minutes were spent on this page, right? Click path analysis to some extent ignores that. But it is something we have. What we don't know is why they didn't convert. So they looked at the page for 1 second. Why didn't they convert? Maybe they didn't see the conversion and you have a design problem. Maybe the page didn't resonate with them. They didn't realize this was their goal and they went back looking for something else. Maybe they had a goal in mind and you just don't have it. And so now that's not what I want. So that type of analysis is really important. Especially important is if you think you know the goal page, why do they leave? So a great example of that is up navigation, right? It's like if you're buying a product, you're at Home Depot and you're looking for a shovel and you drill all the way down through the shovels page and the shovel solutions page and you get all the way down to the shovel and you pick one and you go, and you go back up. That's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Because that's how we shop. Up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. You have to look at that in the entire click path analysis. It's not that all those shovels were terrible. It was that they wanted something different. But in that case, the speed with which they leave is actually a good thing. It means that you had the right information, quickly impactful, so that they knew, I don't want to keep staring at the shovel, I want a different one. No, that's not what I want. That's not what I want, right? Wrong color, hate that pattern. No, I want long sleeve. Those types of responses, that's where art comes in, right? It makes it very easy. And there are other situations like that. If they're on the page a long time and they still up navigate, you have to say, well, what was their goal? Because it could have been completely different. They could be doing a different kind of research. So when we think about all of this, the question is, what are the metrics? What are we after? One of the biggest challenges in this space is connecting the kind of stuff that we do on the content side, the tagging side, the search design, and getting it up there to like the C-level giving a crap. It's really hard. It's really hard to say, you know what, if we capitalized everything more consistently, we'd sell more product. I wouldn't buy that. That sounds ridiculous. Let me show you how it works. And you show how if the term isn't capitalized consistently to what they typed in originally, it won't resonate and they won't know to continue. They'll think they're looking at something else. And all right, that's a bit of a hard sell. But if you're consistent language, that would make sense. If you're branding consistently, I think Hyatt right now has a problem where they own lots of different hotel chains, and there are rules that you can't have too many Hyatts in one geographical area. So they're maintaining a whole lot of different brands with no clear sense that Hyatt owns them all. So when I go looking for a hotel and I see a list of hotels, I don't know what they mean. Do I want this one? Who owns that? Is that part of my plan? And I have no idea. Now they have a very good business reason to name them all differently, but you can see where it fails in this process of the journey. So being able to explain things at this level, to explain how that's going to improve your processes, which is going to get you to your objectives, which is going to get you to what matters, which in this case we're just calling conversions, we need to see that process. Because you can't just say get conversions and think this just magic happens. Because the truth is it doesn't. This is the space where all the governance is that we talk about, right? We don't say get me fewer breaches, right? When we talk about security and all of that stuff, it is in the weeds. That's where the problems happen. It's that one person, that one mistake, that one tool. So the questions we ask, and you can just treat this like a summary of what I've said before, right? We get our overall view. What does the traffic look like as a whole? And then we work our way through. How do the visitors find us? Where do they enter the site? Did they abandon their journeys? Did they reach their goal pages? Assuming we did the research and know what their goal pages are. And did they get to that call of action? Did they do the conversion? And when you have that big picture, you can ask yourself how you want to handle it from that point on. And I'll make the slides available, by the way. I know I'm going quick. This is you can't quite read the left side there. It's predict, measure, analyze, improve. And it's basically the process of saying, in the language of this talk, what are the goals? How do we know? So you need to be able to do that prediction, that hypothesis that says, our customers want this, our citizens want this, and getting to that point. And when you translate that into your metrics, it looks kind of like this. So in each one of those stages, yeah, doesn't this seem obvious? Conversions, conversions, conversions. Right, that's what we want. Sell, sell, sell. That's the Wells Fargo way recently. And the problem is, of course, Wells Fargo focused on that and just didn't have the metrics in place to focus on the process to get there. It's an exaggerated example, but you hear what I'm saying. It's this other stuff that matters. Pay attention to your page rank, your bounce rate, your search exits, right? That's the stuff that really matters because that's what leads to conversion. And what we're doing then is we're essentially flipping the script. We're saying, you want conversions? I'm going to tell you how to do it with content, not with anything else. And I'm going to make your content better. And the example of the Allstate study, which I can go in really quickly, I've got slides. I'm happy to give you guys, we've got the white papers, the press releases. If you guys want to meet me afterward or give me a business card, I will get you all the literature because I'm limited on time here. But the Allstate case study was just that. So Allstate, and you don't have to read this, you can just listen. So Allstate was in a situation where they sold a lot of stuff like personal lines, right? So I'm Joe Schmo and they sell me a thing, right? Some type of insurance. And the idea was they had all of these commercial lines that were generally sold to businesses. And they said, you know, we could sell all this insurance to Joe Schmo. Let's open up our commercial lines to our typical personal lines customers. And it was a great idea. So they have a whole bunch of new underwriting information, a whole bunch of policies and procedures. They had a lot of documentation, which was all brilliant, new tools. And they pushed it out to the agents who were very familiar with the personal line selling. And none of them could do anything, right? Because it's a whole new thing and it's very big and it's complicated. It's not what they're used to. And these are insurance agents, right? These aren't people who necessarily went to school to do this stuff. This is people who found themselves there on the business and the sales side. So what would happen? People would pick up the phone and they'd say, how do I do this? What does this field mean? I'm trying to hit this button and it's not working. And they would call and they would call. And Allstate loved it because it wants to be there for all of their agents. So they made a point of trying to answer the phone all the time, giving them answers all the time, which meant they collected a lot of great metrics about why people were calling. And really what it came down to was everybody was calling about everything because it was just all shoved out there and it was new and scary and hard. So they said, all right, you know what we need? We need an avatar. It's going to solve all our problems right here. And it's a nice idea. The premise being that I'm going to replace the human with a picture of a human and it's going to work just as well. Now to make that work, they did a lot of analysis in terms of their language. What are people saying when they're on the phone? What are they looking for? And one of the biggest things they did is they said, why are they calling and where did they come from when they called? So if I'm on a screen and I pick up the phone, what does the person on the phone say? What are you looking at right now? What page are you on? What field are you looking at? What did you do before you called me? All that contextual information is click path analysis, right? The difference is it just skyrocketed to the phone. But if you could use that click path analysis to say, you know, when people are here, this is the problem that they have. So they began using contextual help. I'm on this page, I have a problem. I'm going to click the little Abby button, and they called it Abby, Allstate Business Insurance Expert. So that's Abby. So the idea was I'm going to click the Abby button, right? Help me, Abby. And Abby would know what you're looking at and would take a best guess because they had done all of the work. This was not a goal page, this was a landing page. And they had trouble with navigation. They solved it, they put in the words. And so in a way, by forcing all of this onto the machine, they had to look at each step of the way. How did they get here? What are they doing? Where are they on the page? What is causing those red lines dropping down in the journey? Keep in mind, in this case, the customer journey is that of the agent, right? And the customer is sitting right there in the room, so they've got to hurry up and figure this out as fast as possible. They would go to Abby and they would just type in actual questions. This is where the avatar really paid off. Although at first it's a little creepy because the eyes follow you, know, that kind of thing. It actually worked really well because people talked to Abby like a human being. I don't understand, blah, blah, blah. And there was enough natural language in there that they were able to do a lot of decent response. But this was only a part of it. The next challenge was, where are they in the larger journey? So they might solve one abandoned process, but they needed to get them to the goal. And better than that, they needed to get them to sell the product. That was the convert they were after. Get the person to sign up. So they looked at the entire process. They took all of the content and chopped it up into little pieces. They began taking content that was treated as content and they started putting it in the search results page as if it's not content, right? This was all one big giant 30-page PDF that explains every screen, and that just doesn't work. So they chopped it all up, and now they actually wanted really great bounce rates because it means they typed it in, they click the button, Abby pops up, FAQ answer number 1 right there. They never actually have to search anything. They click the help button, and it's sort of like, somebody walks in and says, yeah, your keys are over there, right? You just know them well enough that you didn't have to ask. They built Abby with that type of intelligence. Oh, yeah, you probably want this help. And if you want more, you can still call us. But the calls dropped and continued to drop and continued to drop to the point where they focused on the calls, not for the people who are asking the little things, because when they click and they click to call, they know where they're coming from. They could actually prioritize the people who seem to have trouble at a bigger level. They were earlier in the journey process, or at that pivotal moment in the journey process where most people fall off. And they were able to control who they talked to first, who they answered the phones for more immediately. If people weren't using Abby, they would actually get on the phone and say, have you ever seen Abby? And they would spend time on the phone showing them this. And it was so successful that all the agents, I shouldn't say all, a majority of the agents who sold personal lines gave up personal line selling because this worked and there was so much more money in it that the conversion rate skyrocketed, to the detriment of some of the personal line selling. But overall, as a study, this ended up being really amazing. They used Google Analytics because it was all just on the web. So there was no fancy technology behind the scene. It was just making sure you had your links. What are people searching for? Where did they come from? What did they click on? Everything had its own URL and was traceable. And that was it. And in fact, this was so cool with the graphs and the real-time stuff. There was one guy, he had a basement office, which is so appropriate. And he would sit in the basement office and he would watch it live. Somebody in Omaha just clicked on the help button and he would think this was great because he could actually interact and talk about humanizing it. That's essentially what he was doing. He's using these metrics to understand it. And so this is a graph of their experience. This is the sort of thing they did. All of those red lines were those red arrows you saw before. The point is this is real. And if this doesn't look familiar to you, then you probably don't play in Google very often because Google can do this automatically. The challenge is, what are you looking at? What's the filter of this? Is this the everybody map? Is this the map of people who do search? Is this the people who map to that goal? Is this the people who try to sell that product? But it's all about putting it together and looking at this drop-off that says 45% are dropping off their first interaction. That seems like an opportunity for improvement. And that's how you use metrics to drive content. And that's what it comes down to. The metrics might show you how the users interact, but if you're going to get to ROI, if you're going to get to the thing that matters, the conversions, you need all the pieces along the way. And that's what I've got.